You may all now be seated. Before we commence the sermon, let us now take a moment to invite the many countless celestial beings, the many countless divine beings, the many countless beings who, on many countless occasions, were connected to us and continue to be in this long journey in samsara. Among them will be those who have been our mothers and fathers, siblings, best of friends, our teachers, acquaintances, those who were there for us when we needed their help and support, those who were there to guide us in our difficult times and to lend us a helping hand when we needed it. When when the opportunity presented to them, they did everything in their power to help us, to support us, to assist us. We are a people who do not forget our duties, our responsibilities. We are a people who are grateful to those who have helped us. Today we have embarked on the most wonderful journey there is, the journey to freeing oneself from all suffering once and for all. Alas, among those who were there with us back then, today this opportunity may not be available. Our merits have brought us this far on this journey. But as grateful human beings, today let us take this opportunity to extend an invite to all those who have been with us and come along this journey with us. Those who are there to help, support, and guide us, to assist us. Let us repay the debts that we owe them with gratitude as well as compassion towards all sentient beings. As I now make this invite, I ask you all to extend that invitation out in your hearts and in your minds to all of them. May they join us, may they witness this meritorious deed. Let us not forget that among them may be those who are born today in the woeful plains, who are lacking in merit. May this opportunity afford to them a chance to rejoice in the merits. May such merits free themselves or free them from the woeful plains once and for all. May all sentient beings in the blissful plane be able to listen to the teaching of the Great Master, understand and comprehend it, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, with those thoughts in your mind, and with compassion emanating outward to all those beings, let us invite them to join us. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajasa Sunantu Saggamokkhadam Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. Also, before we begin, let us take a moment to reflect on the fact that in this long journey in samsara, we have not always been in the association of moral and noble ones. In fact, the truth has been quite the opposite. We have virtually always fallen into the association of ignoble, immoral beings. These associations defiled our minds with desire, aversion, and delusion. And having been blinded in ignorance and attachment, on countless occasions we would have offended, insulted, desecrated, and reviled the noble ones. The consequences of such actions today are that we are hindered on our journey to freeing ourselves. The very great values and virtues that we once desecrated are the very values and virtues that today we seek to instill within our minds and within ourselves and to embrace. Today we understand the errors in our ways. Therefore, let us take a moment to seek their forgiveness. From the noble ones, the Sammasambuddhas and the Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakudagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path of having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry to Sambuddha Shasana, for any thoughts, words, or actions of revile, desecration, slander, insult, or offense that we might have directed towards them. Let us take a moment to do that, and as you do so, I urge you to make a solemn promise to yourself to never conduct yourself in this manner ever again. And finally, let us make a firm resolve. May, through the course of this sermon, if there have thus far remained any gaps in your understanding which have kept you from achieving the first noble state of Sotapanna or stream enterer, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill that first step on the journey and free yourselves once and for all from the four great hells by realizing the Four Noble Truths. And for any among you who may have already achieved that noble state, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages, and may we all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that resolve in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves now to listen to this sermon. Okay. I think, folks, by now, you're all well aware that you're not alone on the battlefield. In your fight for independence. To become free from suffering, to become independent. And independent happiness. It is not just I who you have to help you, to guide you, as well as to support you. Over the years, over the months, over the weeks that you have come along on this journey, your good merit has enabled you to gather up a group of supporters. And who do I speak of? Well, of course, none other than you yourselves. It is truly with a great sense of respect and deep appreciation that I mention these words. That what I have seen, what I have witnessed among you, and of course, this is what I have seen from not even seeing your faces, but the way in which you conduct yourselves, when one among you needs help, needs some guidance, needs a hand, an extra bit of support, some strength. It is truly commendable. And I don't wish you to take this lightly, because it is not every day you get to see this kind of camaraderie where everyone pulls together for the same cause, for the same fight, the same battle, one goal, one mission, one journey, one path, one ambition. Because what I see is unity. And where there is unity, there is, of course, great power. I think we have, over the years, over the months, been able to build a family of Tathagata Shravakas who all want nothing else than freeing themselves from suffering, and along the way, helping their fellow brothers and sisters, fellow men and women, achieve the same thing. Time and time again, I notice this, I witness this, where when we have a question from someone who's struggling with some kind of issue and we discuss it, we never fail to receive something. It could be a letter, maybe a short analogy, maybe something that someone has personally experienced themselves, an anecdote that is shared to help the person who has become the victim of the defilements. And last week was no different. So last week, you recall that we discussed at great length an entire sermon dedicated to discuss a practical problem, a series of events that had unfolded in someone's life, and they were seeking help. Your call for help was not only heard by myself, but also others just like you, your fellow supporters. See, it may be that you've never met each other. Of course, it's been 2 years, or at least about that, since you last visited the monastery. And of course, there'll be those who have never set foot into a monastery. But yet, I believe you have now come to realize that when you are in need of help and you make it known that you are in need of help by way of submitting a question to us, and when that question is read out and we work through an hour, a couple of hours to find a solution to that problem, it is not just advice and guidance that you receive from Swami Nuhanse, but also sometimes a flurry of emails containing supportive words, guidance, help, assistance ensues. And as I say, last week was no different. So last week we went through the contents of an email that was submitted containing some issues that were faced by a good lady, and we discussed it, of course, at some length. And today I have at hand something that has been created just for you, man, by not me, by not any of our monks or anagarikas or anagarikas. This is by a fellow Shravaka or Shravika, someone just like you, someone who wishes to help as they receive help, someone who wishes to make it known to you that you are not alone in this game. This is not a lone battle, that with me or without me, you will always have someone to help you, to watch out for you. Let me take a moment to read it out to you. So, this came to us on an email, and it's a short verse that has been crafted just for you. What I can see here is beyond the words that are on the that compose or that comprise even this prose. What I see beyond that is the compassion, the loving kindness that one shares for another, making their best efforts, putting aside time, because we all understand how precious time is. But people put aside time for others just like them, to help them, guide them, and to be just so that they know that someone's there for them. So let me read it out for you. Teruvan Saranai Garu Swami Nohanse. With reference to last Sunday's sermon, I would like to share the following to the lady referred therein. So this is in response to the question that came through in last week's sermon. It goes on to say, "Dear noble friend, as our Swami Nohanse said, listening to the Dhamma will cleanse our mind. It helps to remove the residues of attachment slowly but permanently. The following few lines, which I have penned down after listening to the given sermon, will help you understand the illusion that we are in." So this is a verse that this lady or gentleman has put together, dedicated for you, to help you, in the hope that in these words you might find some wisdom that may help you to free yourself from the ordeal that you mentioned in last week's email. Cruelty in Love is titled, and this is how it goes. Attachment is in front of me, wrapped with the most beautifully shaped and formed word called love. So I use the word and say, I love you. I do not want you to suffer, and I do express my love to you, expecting your love in return. So, of course, this is how worldly beings feel about love. When someone says, I love you, what do they mean by that? I do not want you to suffer. I want you to know that I have an abundance of love that I share with you so selflessly, and all I expect in return is your love. That is what they say. But what is the truth? The verse goes on to say, suddenly I hear the words of the Sugata Tathagata and Mahan say, attachment is the cause of suffering. Oh, how cruel I have been. I have expected your love in return, and I have expected to see you suffering on my behalf. Inspired by listening to the sermon. A few words, but words of compassion nonetheless. Words which contain a deep wisdom, a deep and profound idea. Words that are worth reflecting on, pondering over. At the end of the day, it is this word, love, that has entangled us in so many problems, struggles that we have come across in life. If you just took the time to examine what love really is, what is it that we call love? And I don't speak of altruism, selfless love, but I talk about the love that is experienced by 99% of all people in the world. A selfish love, a love which entails suffer on my behalf. Really, when someone says, I love you, it is a demand rather than something that is given. It is a request. What that means is, I expect you to suffer on my behalf. When I say I love you, it means I will suffer on your behalf and I expect you to suffer on my behalf. That cannot be true love. True love cannot contain suffering. It cannot entail suffering. If suffering is the one thing that all sentient beings fear and hate the most, if suffering is the one thing that all sentient beings want to be without, then why introduce that into our lives? You can't fault them for it, because at the end of the day, it is ignorance that drives one to seek this sort of commitment from one another. The suffer on my behalf and I will suffer on your behalf. That is not how it ought to be. You should understand. How it ought to be? I will do the best I can to stop suffering on my behalf as well as on yours. And I want you to do the best you can to stop suffering, to put an end to suffering on your behalf as much as on mine. The definition of the word suffering, or rather the definition of the word love, I think it's high time it got rewritten. I think it's high time people put some thought into this word and realize that actually love is not really love. So I think this gift of Dhamma that has come through by one of our devotees, dedicated to another one of our devotees, or rather one of our listeners, is a true mark of compassion. And may this gift of Dhamma help both the giver and the receiver on their journey to freeing themselves from suffering, regardless of what extent to which that happens. I take pride and I rejoice in the fact that time and time again you continue to prove to me, to us, to the Mahasangha, that you are also now part of the Sangha. In the Buddha's own words, Bhikkhu Bhikkhuni, Upasaka Upasika, all four quarters that bear the Buddha's words, bear his doctrine, and practice it to free oneself and help others along the way are considered the Sangha. There is, of course, the conventional Sangha, but this is the absolute Sangha, of which you are all part of. The world needs more people like you. And I want you to continue to be like this. This is an invitation to all of you. I remember with great regard how, when you used to visit the monastery, if there was a newcomer to a sermon, how you would welcome him or her, offer them a seat, make sure that they were looked after, and you did everything possible and available to you to ensure that they would return another day. Not because you wanted anything in return. Of course, there was nothing for you to get in return, except for maybe the merits of helping another person. But rather, you knew fully well the beauty of what you had encountered, the power of what you had come across, and how much it has healed you individually as persons. And you wanted that opportunity, that gift, to be available and afforded to other sentient beings, other men, women, and children just like you. Long may that continue. Because in helping others, in the service of mankind, we become great. And that is what greatness is. So, that was a gift from one of our listeners to another one of our listeners. And of course, it will be for not just one, but many in future. And I hope that the merits that you have acquired in producing it, in sharing it, help not only the person who has compiled this, but also all those who have applauded that good deed on their path to Nibbana. Sharing is, after all, caring. Now, we have discussed the concept of pleasure over many sermons and over a long period of time. We have dissected pleasure in our previous sermons, taken it apart piece by piece. We have discussed how it comes into being, what are the factors that contribute to experiencing it, and how it is not all that it is claimed to be. So I want you to juggle your memory and bring back memories of that. See, folks, the nature of Buddhist philosophy is that on day one, as in when the doctrine is delivered, when the doctrine is first preached, it is at its purest form. So, of course, we speak of a time when the Lord Buddha, having attained enlightenment, revealed the Four Noble Truths. And his doctrine, his philosophy,